Good day, I am Pablo Escobar, and today we will be joined by Mr. Abad, and he will be discussing the decoding number 1 and 2. Please give him a big round of applause. So let's start right away. We'll be asking a few questions, and you need to answer it directly. So question number 1: why do you think the cities around the world have to be ranked? City rankings embody the growing global demand for urban metrics, city performance measurement, and international-oriented comparisons. Benchmarks not only make newspaper headlines, but they also inform and influence the practice of urban governance, and it drives it toward international thinking. In a brief explanation, it can be stated that there is a broad range of approaches to ranking. And it seems that rankings is focusing on a more detailed and clearly defined issue. It provides more applicable results than rankings that provide just an overall list. One serious problem of all city rankings seems to be the fact that public attention is mainly focused on the final ranking, without considering the methodological aspects behind the ratings. This selective public perception of results reinforces a confirmation of existing stereotypes and cliches. It also neglects the specific strengths and weakness of the cities. The rankings are excessively acclaimed by the winners in order to improve their public image, while the losers tend to ignore end results that might threaten their position in the city competition. Consequently, both groups of cities pass up the chance to make use of the results in a constructive and positive way by discussing the main findings in detail. Only a serious examination of the results reveals the actual strengths and weaknesses of cities and can therefore be used as an empirical base for detecting future fields of activity. Another major handicap of most city ranking lies in their generalist approach. Since many financiers ask for clear results that can be communicated easily to the general public, most rankings aim at finding the best or most attractive city in general terms. Very well said answer, Mr. Rabat. Let's move on to number 2. Do you think the cities around the world affect global trends such as the values of ideas and collaboration, connectivity, entrepreneurial spirit, and economic competitiveness? Yes, and I will explain them to you one by one. First is the value of ideas and collaboration. It improves the way our team works together and how they solve problems. This leads to more innovation, efficient processes, increased success, and improved communication. The second is connectivity. Sustainability cannot and should not be jurisdicted specifically. It must be globalized and universal. Only by being more globally connected with associated clear parameters, standardizations, and measurements that we can accelerate the net zero transition and create a more sustainable world. Then the third one is entrepreneurial spirit. Entrepreneurship is an important driver of economic growth. You know that, Mr. Pablo. And it has the potential to create jobs, spur innovation, and increase productivity in both developed and developing countries. And last but not least is the economic competitiveness. In an economy without adequate competition, prices and corporate profits rise, while workers' wages decrease. This means large corporations and their shareholders gain wealth, while consumers and workers pay well. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Abad, today. We thank you very much. I hope you great success. Thank you everyone for joining Pablo Escobar here at BBC News.
A pleasant day to each and every one of you watchers. This video will be all about answering number 3 and 4 of the Global Cities Decoding part. And I am Cristel C.R. Santos, your speaker. Let's go and discuss this topic. Number 3. What do you think are the challenges faced by the cities around the globe? Well, here's the answer for that question. The challenges faced by the cities around the globe are financial crisis, large scale of natural disasters, and overgrowing population that now exceeds in 7 billion. Let's start with financial crisis. There are countries that are in risk in deep financial crisis, such as Ukraine, which has to restructure its $20 billion of debt and heavyweight investors. Kenya, that spends roughly 30% of revenues on interest payments. For the next challenge, the large scale of natural disasters. Number 1. Philippines. Since it's located along the typhoon belt in the Pacific, the Philippines is visited by an average of 20 typhoons every year. Being situated in the Pacific Ring of Fire makes it vulnerable to frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Typhoon Yolanda is the strongest typhoon in the Philippines. Number 2. Indonesia. Indonesia lies in the Pacific Ring of Fire, just like the Philippines. In 2004, a large part of the world was rocked by the Indian Ocean earthquake and subsequent tsunamis, killing over 167,000 people in Indonesia. And for the last challenge, the growing population that exceeds the 7 billion, with 1.4 billion inhabitants. China is the most populated country in the world. China has the high birth rates, coupled with low death rates. Overpopulation is directly affecting China's economy by higher unemployment rates, food shortages, increase in environmental change, and reduce the standard of living. Name a city in the country and say something about their development and contribution to the nation building. Number 1. Dubai. Dubai is a city in an emirate in a country called United Arab Emirates. Dubai is the most developed and sophisticated city in the United Arab Emirates, mainly because of the high salaries, great amenities, outstanding buildings, and excellent healthcare system. Dubai has established a number of records in the construction industry, thanks to its facilities including the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest tower, the Dubai Mall, the world's largest mall, the Dubai Fountain, world's largest fountain, and the Jivora Hotel, the world's tallest hotel. What's Dubai's contribution to the nation building? Dubai is leading in creating wealth with real estate, tourism, trade, and banking. Dubai has quickly established itself as an important trading hub, with businesses from all over the world increasing their presence in the city. Moving on to the next city, the one of the major city in South America, the Buenos Aires. What are the development of this city? Well, the city's service sector is well diversified and well developed by international standards. Buenos Aires is known for its rich cultural life and architecture. They are the combination of rich architectural life and cultural heritage. On the other hand, Buenos Aires is a contribution to nation building too, which is women and print culture in post-independence. It is a careful archival study that brings to light some understudied texts and correct misunderstandings about others, because it contemplated the nature, role, and status of women. The treatment of women are central to the success of liberalism and the prospects of nation building. Now, you've seen the entire video. I hope you've learned anything after answering to our questions in our decoding part. Once again, I am Cristel Cia R. Santos, your speaker. Thank you for watching.
Global cities are characterized by occupational and income polarization, with a highly paid professional class on the one end and providers of low-paid services on the other. The lifestyles and needs of the well-off professional classes bring into the global city of an army of low-paid workers who deliver personal and labor-intensive services like cleaning, childcare, delivery, restaurants and eateries, catering, maintenance, transport, hotels, domestic help, and retail. In 2005, SASN introduced Global City as a global command centers of the world economy. Also, SASN defined Global City where it is a primary economic that she distinguished it in four ways. The first one is the key location for finance and specialized service firms, which have replaced manufacturing as the leading economic services. Second, size of production including the production of innovation in leading industries. Third one, highly concentrated command points in the organization of the world economy. Fourth and the last, markets for the products and innovations. Global cities are brain hubs and centers of a knowledge economy. Economies of scales and concentration necessary despite the proliferation of communication technology. Network economies and spillovers effect include thick labor markets. In knowledge workers, polarization extends to differentiation by human capital, which is skills and formal education. Global city possess a vast, complex, and unique cultural environment, where there are typical features of a global city. They occupy a large territorial extension that are densely populated. They have tourist importance and are usual venue for renowned international events. They are connected by an airport to the main commercial air routes of the world. In addition, they have complex internal system and massive ground transportation. Global cities are centers for servicing and financing international trade, investment, and headquarters operations. That is to say, the multiplicity of specialized activities presented in global cities are crucial in the valorization, indeed overvalorization, of leading sectors of capital today. And in this sense, global cities are strategic production sites for today's leading economic sectors. This function is reflected in the ascendance of service-related activities in the economies of these cities. This is not simply a question of a growth in a service jobs, but more important, the growing service intensity in the whole organization of advanced economies. Firms in all industries, from mining to wholesale, buy more accounting, legal, advertising, financial, economic, forecasting services today than they did 20 years ago. Whether at the global or regional level, urban centers, central cities, edge cities are often the best production sites for specialized services. When it comes to the production of services for the leading globalization sectors, the advantage of location in cities are particularly strong. That is, the latter have re-emerged as significant production sites after losing this role in the period manufacturing was the dominant sector of the economy.
Good day everyone, I'm Stephanie Shane R. Bautista. I'm the reporter for Under Advancing Cosmopolitanism. Cosmopolitanism is a broad-ranging term in sociopolitical and moral philosophy which has been the subject of debate in human geography and the social sciences. It is a highly contested term which has been conceptualized and defined in different ways. Cosmopolitanism is generally associated with the concept that all of the humanity could and should belong to a single community. In fact, cosmopolitanism is broadly constructed as the belief that all people are entitled to equal respect and consideration, no matter what their citizenship status or other affiliations happen to be. Someone who adheres to such cosmopolitan principles or exhibit cosmopolitan characteristics, they are defined is referred to as cosmopolite or cosmopolitan. However, the exact nature of this community and how it could be constituted and created all has been the subject of much debate. A dominant perspective in many but not all cosmopolitan stances is an emphasis on getting beyond forms of social interaction which limit the possibilities of achieving the single community. Thus, Cosmopolitanism is often, but not necessarily correctly, conceived of as an alternative to patriotism and nationalism, and as a critical of parochial attachment to place. Instead, emphasis is placed on the search for more inclusive forms of social relations between global citizens and a global outlook, and openness to difference. Cosmopolitanism has relevance to a wide range of geographical issues which include geopolitics, governance, territoriality, globalization, new transnational social movements, international migration, multiculturalism, living with difference, the branding and marketing of cosmopolitan space and cities, and lastly, moral and ethical geographies. While debates have often focused on abstract philosophical discussion, more recent research, particularly between human geography, has examined how notions of cosmopolitanism are constructed and deployed in particular socio-spatial contexts and their social and partial implications. Cosmopolitanism has a collective aspect, theorized among others by Émile Durkheim, and an individual-centered aspect, elaborated particularly by Immanuel Kant.
Good day everyone, I am Saya Ramirez and I'm going to present Global Cities and Livable.
From the perspective of these people who make up a majority of the world's population today, the answer of the question, what are livable cities? Livable cities are places where residents can find jobs that pay a living wage. A livable city provides its citizens with basic services including safe water and adequate sanitation. The inhabitants of a livable city have access to the educational opportunities and healthcare. They are not at risk of forced eviction and enjoy secure tenure, and perhaps most importantly, livable cities are void of discriminatory practices and governed through inclusive democratic processes. Currently, dominant globalization constrains and undermines urban livability, thus defined in more than one way. It is mostly top-down and oriented towards economic growth for private profit. It is not inclusive nor democratic nor is oriented towards public welfare, social justice, and environmental sustainability. However, it needs to be this way. Now, why are global cities livable? First, because they provide jobs that pay an adequate wage. Living wage continues to be a challenging issue for ETI and its members. The past few years have seen a rise in interest in the issues of wages from a range of stakeholders, including consumers, the media, and not least, workers themselves. Second, they provide basic services including safe water and adequate sanitation. Ensure access to water and sanitation for all. Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene is the most basic human need for health and well-being. Third, people have access to educational opportunities and healthcare. Globally, more people live in urban areas than in rural settings, while cities offer many opportunities for employment and access to better service such as health, education, social protection that are necessary for good health and human development. Cities can also pose unique health risks. Fourth, people are not at risk of forced eviction. Forced evictions are often linked to the absence of legally secure tenure, which constitute an essential element of the right to adequate housing. Fifth, people enjoy security of tenure in affordable housing. Housing has become the defining economic issues of our times. In addition to being a fundamental need of an individual, housing is an economic engine for the low-income families as it plays a vital role in the growth and development of the family, the community, and the country. 6. People live in communities that are safe and an environment that are clean, sustainable, sustainable communities are environmentally sustainable in terms of cleanliness and efficiency. Lastly, the cities are governed through inclusive local democratic processes. At the heart of all democracies is an essential trust that the individual places in others to fairly pursue the common affairs of all people. The basic trust, sometimes called social capital, can only be built from the ground up, from the local.
That's all. Thank you for watching. And once again, I am Sarah Ramirez. See you on my next video. Bye!
Globalization is defined as the process of interaction and integration of different countries among the others. It develops every nation's state of living by influencing each to globally compete and be as good as the other. In order to keep track of the country's ranking, organizations have set standards to determine one's development and outstanding features. Join me as we discuss the Global Power City Index with the Japanese Mori Memorial Foundation. The Japanese Mori Memorial Foundation was established on July 1981 and is led by its president Shigenori Kobayashi. The foundation is focused on its aim to engage in comprehensive research in urban development to create ideal urban environments for sustainable living of its people. It is mainly directed to the growth and development of Japan's way of living, wherein phases of modernization are taken as priority to ensure everyone's accommodated. The GPCI, or the Global Power City Index, evaluates and ranks the major cities of the world according to their magnetism or its comprehensive power to attract creative people and business enterprises from around the world. The status of ranking changes as economic and social factors also changes. Rankings are based from 6 criteria such as economy, cultural interaction, environment, livability, accessibility, and the research and development of the major cities. Through this system, the strengths and weaknesses of each are recognized by depth analysis and research in the given components. The results gained from researching different cities across the world helps us to understand their major achievements and challenges, which also gives us ideas by how they manage to handle and overcome such crises. Aside from having criteria for ranking in which are used as basis in researching, there are also features to be taken in consideration during the process of research. On top of that is the fact that GPCI focuses on a wide variety of functions in order to assess and rank the global potential and power of a certain city. It is not limited to a specific area of consideration, but instead it seeks for the general strength and capabilities of the city. Also, GPCI does not entertain any subjective analysis as it strictly ranks based on the 6 criteria given and the 5 actors who leads urban activities within the city, such as the managers, researchers, artists, visitors, and the residents. It is a fact as well that the GPCI reveals the strengths and weaknesses of a city, including the problems of each city that are in need for solutions. Lastly, rankings are well confirmed by global authorities and other international experts from both public and private sectors before it is released.
Hello everyone, I'm here to present to you the Global City Key Findings of GPCI 2017. And now, let's talk about the key findings of the GPCI 2017. It presents the report and the notable points inside the summary. In the comprehensive or overall ranking, the top 5 cities are follows. First, London. Second, New York. Third, Tokyo. fourth Paris, and fifth Singapore. This means that these 5 cities have scored highly in the given 6 criteria. London, the number 1 city in the comprehensive ranking for the 6th year in a row, further extends its lead over the competition by improving its score for such indicators as GDP growth rate and level of political, economic, and business risk in economy, and for attractiveness of dining options and number of visitors from abroad in cultural interaction. Second is New York. The top 2 increases its scores for the economy indicators of nominal GDP and GDP growth rate, but fails to make any significant headway in comprehensive score, having returned weaker scores in this year in cultural interactions indicators such as number of world-class cultural events held and livability indicators like variety of retail shops. Lastly, Tokyo, which claimed the number 3 ranking for the first time last year and closes the gap on New York this year. This is a result of American cities' score stalling while Tokyo continues to improve every year. In the cultural interaction, indicators of number of visitors from abroad and number of international students. Notably, by the year 2017, these cities had already been in the top 5 for 9 consecutive years. Another notable ranking outside the top 5 is that Sydney has reached the top 10 in 7 years. Cities such as Los Angeles, top number 11, Beijing, number 13, and San Francisco is number 17. Also largely improved their rankings from last year. The last key findings is that European cities score highly in liability and environment, while Asian cities score highly in economy.
Good morning, my name is Isaac Aurelio and I will be discussing about transport top 3 cities and results for new cities in GPCI 2017. London, the number 1 city in the comprehensive ranking for the 6th year in a row, further extends its lead over the competition by improving its scores for such indicators as GDP growth rate and level of political, economic, and business risk and economy, and for attractiveness of dining options and number of visitors abroad in cultural interaction. London has attained the status of a global city as a result of its effort to increase citizen income and occupation. For several years, business inputs in London have been high, as have large commercial spaces and labor availability. Next is New York, the top 2 global city, increases its scores for the economy indicators of nominal GDP and GDP growth rate, but fails to make any significant headway in comprehensive score, having returned weaker scores this year in cultural interaction indicators such as number of world-class cultural events held and livability indicators like variety of retail shops. New York City is considered a global city because it has powerful organizations that are linked to the rest of the world, and it is home to many major corporations and multinational corporations. Tokyo claimed the number 3 ranking for the first time last year and closed the gap on New York number 2 this year. This is a result of the American cities' score stalling while Tokyo continues to improve every year in the cultural interaction indicator of number of visitors from abroad. However, Japan's capital city slips from number 1 to number 4 in economy due to weaker scores in market size and market attractiveness. Tokyo remains the top city in Asia for attracting global talent, ranking 3rd globally. Tokyo has also developed into one of the world's leading international economic centers. The Tokyo Stock Exchange is one of the world's major financial centers and headquartered in Tokyo. The government-controlled Bank of Japan regulates Japan's banking system. As for the results for new cities in PPCI 2017, Dubai and Buenos Aires make their first ever appearances in the GPCI in 2017 with respective comprehensive rankings of number 23 and number 40. Dubai boasts strength in cultural interaction number 9 and economy number 11, mainly thanks to strong evaluation for corporate tax rate in economy and number of luxury hotel guest rooms in cultural interaction.
Global city. It is a hub within the worldwide economic system and an urban center with strong competitive advantages. But when globalization processes drew more attention in the years that followed, these international cities started to be referred to as global cities. The notion of spatial rearrangement and the theory that cities were becoming into crucial centers within international production, financial, and telecommunication networks were both associated with globalization. Thus, according to certain interpretation of the global city thesis, these cities served as the foundation for globalization. These cities were simultaneously becoming into increasingly privileged locales for local politics as part of the larger strategy to restructure state institutions. Earlier research on cosmopolitan cities focused on important metropolitan hubs such as London, New York City, and Tokyo. But throughout time, research on other growing global cities have also been conducted, including Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Houston, Los Angeles, Mexico City, Paris, and Sydney. These cities are claimed to connect to create global city network that serves the needs of transnational capital across large areas of land. Good day everyone, my name is Arian Gildy Burgos, and with that, here are the downsides of living in a global city. So the first we have is high costs. Cities' rising costs are a result of supply and demand. Therefore, rents and property prices increase because more people want to live there. To cover high rents, businesses must either charge more for their goods or, as is the case with fast food restaurants, sell a lot of inexpensive food quickly. There must be something that draws people to a place if the cost of living is relatively high. Rents are higher because of the greater cost of land due to increased population density. The next one that we have is alienation. A person who is alienated is the one who has distanced himself from both his spiritual and material worlds, rendering him remote and powerless to alter the environment in which he lives. He may be subjected to force or forceful estrangement. A lack of devotion is ingrained to cultural elements such as cultural code, cultural values, social institutions, and the like can be seen as alienation from society, which is culturally estrangement that encourages the dissolution of the common culture. So the next one that we have is impersonality. Experiences in which you don't feel that an individual is being handled with respect. When two people engage in a way that is unrelated to their personal identities, this is known as an impersonal connection. Only cultures that are able to create and maintain an impersonal identity of citizen or resident that applies uniformly to a vast number of individuals may have impersonal connections. So moving on to the next is social isolation. High-rise structures can lead to disorientation and depression, while large low-income housing complexes can make residents feel inferior and isolated from the rest of the city. Urban isolation has been defined as the individual's low expectancy for inclusion and social acceptance, expressed typically in feelings of loneliness or feelings of rejection or repudiation. High-rise structures may make people feel lost and depressed, while sizable low-income housing developments can make people feel inferior to and excluded from the rest of the city. So the last one that we have is discrimination against migrants of certain kinds. Migrants sometimes struggle to integrate into new communities, which causes issues with peaceful coexistence, trade, cultural customs, religious views, linguistic hurdles, agricultural practices, economic activity, social integration, pastoralism, and other issues. Low pay, cruel work schedules, and hazardous working conditions are frequently among them. Speaking the language of their employers and coworkers and comprehending the employment regulations that protect employees are two common difficulties that newcomers to a city confront. One of the issues being faced as well are in diversity and community. Prejudice, which is an intolerance and treatment of a person based on their race, religion, sexual orientation, ability, or political beliefs, is one of the difficulties of living in a diverse society. Stereotyping, on the other hand, is the act of making an unjustified assumption or generalization about a person based on an aspect of their cultural identity. And the last one is mobility and community. An individual may begin to avoid activities and social gatherings as their mobility declines, which might increase their sense of loneliness. One's mental health may suffer greatly as a result of this. A person might also suffer isolation when their level of movement declines, not simply when they become disabled.